shantim arigachati. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense proprietorship, and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. 72. Esha brahmistati parta nainam prapya vimuhyati stitasyam antakalepi brahmanirvanam richati. That is the way of the spiritual and godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered. Being so situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God. It's nice to be not bewildered at the time of death. Okay, chapter 3, Karma Yoga. Next one. Arjuna Uvacha Jayasi Chet Karmanaste Mata Budhir Janardana Tat Kim Karmani Kore Mam Yojasi Keshava. Arjuna said, O Janardan, O Keshava, why do you urge me to engage in this ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work? Text 2. Vyamishrineva vakyena buddhimohaya sivame trikam varanishchitya inshreyoham apnayam. My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively what is most beneficial for me. Text 3. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Lokesmin Dvividha Nishtha Purapokta Mayanaka Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam. The Blessed Lord said, O sinless Arjuna, I have already explained that there are two classes of men who realize the self. Some are inclined to understand him by empirical, philosophical speculation, and others are inclined to know him by devotional work. Text 4. Nakarmanam anarampan naishkarmyam purusho snute nacha sanyasanad eva siddhim samadhigachati. Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. That's nice. Text 5. Nahi kaschit kshanam api jatu tishyatya karma krit karyate hyavasha karma sarvapakriti jaganahai. All men are forced to act helplessly according to the impulses born of the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. In text 6. This is where we're going to, right? Text 6? To say on that board? Karmendriyani samyamya yaaste manasa smaran indriyarthan vimudhatma mithyacharasa uchyate. One who restrains the senses and organs of action, but whose mind dwells on the sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. Pretender. Okay, we'll go back to text 68. Tasmadisya mahabaho nigrihitani sarvashaha indriyani indriyarthebhyas tasya pragya pratishtita. Therefore, O mighty armed, one whose senses are restrained from their objects is certainly of steady intelligence. Therefore, by His divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. As enemies are curbed by superior force, similarly, the senses can be curbed not by any human endeavor, but only by keeping them engaged in the service of the Lord. One who has understood this, that only by Krishna consciousness is one really established in intelligence, and that one should practice this art under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, is called sadhaka, or a suitable candidate for liberation. So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, for those who don't know, he's one of our acharyas. He's right there with the writing the book, he's written a lot of purports, but in his purport he described how Krishna is calling Arjuna mighty armed, Mahabaho. This is a term that he uses many times because Arjuna is a valiant warrior, very strong. So he's saying Mahabaho, mighty armed, because Krishna is saying, just like you were very strong and were able to subdue your enemies, now it's time for you to subdue your mind. So this is the focus in controlling the mind, which Arjuna later, hears more from Krishna and he rejects. I was hearing earlier when we were taking prasadam, she was making a very wonderful point that, we could be in the most perfect setting, the most perfect atmosphere. Yogis traditionally go to the Himalayas. There's clean, pure air, pure water. There's so much prana. There's not so much pollution in the environment, either grossly or subtly. So it's more conducive for practicing meditation and cultivating sattva gun, peacefulness, tranquility, and really going inward. But still, you have to act in the world, and just by acting in the world, it creates karma, creates a reaction. So no matter what we do, there's no escaping this reaction. But what Krishna is teaching to Arjuna, especially early on in the Bhagavad Gita, is kama karma yoga, or nishkama karma yoga. Nishkama meaning like, kama means lust, nish means not. So no, like action that's free from lust. It's activity that we could perform that's free from the desire for the fruitive results. So this is very easily achieved in Krishna consciousness by engaging our senses in the service of the master of the senses. Otherwise, it's very, very difficult to sit and control our senses. Did anybody try meditating before they came to Krishna consciousness? What was that experience like? Somebody, anybody? Well, that's your experience, at least. That's one. But what you're talking about, it reminds me one time. One time I went to a mindfulness meditation club. It was like right after I like got super serious about Krishna consciousness, and I was like, oh, this would be probably a good place to distribute books. And I went there and I had to sit through this whole meditation, like this guided meditation, and it was like entirely sense gratification, like just everything she was saying and like portraying the picture, and people are like, going into their mind, but it's meditating on the object of the senses, different things that bring us happiness in this world. But as we hear, as Krishna says, that one who, what did we just read? Yes, tender. Yeah, not by nearly oh wait, skipped a page. One who restrains the senses and organs of action, but whose mind dwells on the sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. So yeah, there are real yogis who go to like the mountains or are Buddhist monks, and they really try to like still their mind and meditate and get rid of all the sense gratification, the suffering. But most people in the modern world are doing a little bit of meditation, but their mind is still just harboring all these different lusty desires for different things. Why is this no good? It's because whatever that we're doing for material sense pleasure, it has a beginning and an end. Adya antarantakantaya. Krishna says that it always has a beginning and an end. So he says the wise person does not delight in these things because the wise person sees, why am I going to do something that it has a half-life, like a shelf life? And I'm just thinking, like, you guys were just at the chief's shindig. How important will that moment be 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, if the world's still working in the way that it is now? It'll just be a name on a list, another name on a list, another statistic. Similarly, us, you die. Maybe a little, like in the newspaper, like an obituary, like a little column. And if you're like really, really, really important, it'll be like a page or 2 pages. But then after that, life goes on. And say you have kids and you have grandkids. Yeah, maybe your kids will feel sad, your grandkids maybe a little bit, but your great grandkids, your great grandkids, they don't even know who you are. Completely insignificant. So this is the life that we hold on to. We hold so near and dear. We're so attached to everything that we see and experience. But if we view it on a much grander scale, we realize how temporary it is, how flickering it is. So Krishna gives us the escape of this, or rather, yeah, he cuts us free from this illusion. So thinking that we could find happiness in this world, this is Maya, this is illusion. Happiness is there, yeah. You might have some happiness in relationships, or you eat some nice food, there's happiness, but it's always temporary. And like I mentioned, the word in half-life, there's always like a shelf life happiness, a saturation point rather. Like imagine your favorite food, and somebody sits you down with a big giant plate, and you're like, giant bowl. But then you get full, and then they're just like, no, one more dosa, one more dosa, and you just keep giving you, and you're just like, get stomach ache, right? And stomach upset. Shri Gwanata Kijai. Yeah, we get a stomach upset because we take what we want to enjoy, but we do too much of it, and we actually get hurt. We get pain. That's just an indication that this life is not meant so much for enjoying. And another example is that, if we look at, my pinky finger, this little thing, it doesn't do so much, and like it wasn't, it might not be the biggest deal. But it doesn't really bring me any pleasure. I can't do anything to like bring satisfaction from this thing. But there's like a million ways that you could like freeze this or shock it or cut it or stab, and I feel pain from it. So just by walking and living in life, there's so much pain and suffering. So the overall point is that just by meditating and restraining our senses from the activities does not mean we'll be free from the encumbrances in life. There's always different adversities, always different things that challenge us. Krishna talks about how these modes of material nature, they're always a competition with one another for supremacy. I was telling you a little bit in the morning the other day that looking at there's more goodness in the morning, passionate energy in the midday. You could see at that Chiefs thing, the later the day gets on, the more people there, and everybody's fired up, and then like literally fired up. Yeah, a little too much passion, And then nighttime comes naturally. Okay, it's time to call it a night. Time to sleep. Ignorance, or people go out drinking, they party. They're just intoxication. So these modes of material nature are always fighting for supremacy, and this is going on within our own consciousness. So we can try to refrain from the things that bring us anxiety, the things that make us sad, the things that make us feel angst. We can't escape them. We can't escape them because it's always going to come. So Krishna is speaking just this to Arjuna. Arjuna's on the battlefield, and he's saying, I don't want to fight. There's various reasons that he mentions why, which I don't want to get into. And it's actually much better than the reasons that we would come up with. But it gives like, like the summon brain report. So it's easy for us to say, yeah, Arjuna's, he's foolish. He's bringing up bad ideas. Before Krishna consciousness, before we heard of this, he's bringing up much better ideas than we would bring up. I don't want to do it because, I don't want to do it because he's lazy. So Arjuna's fighting this battle and he doesn't want to fight. He's there. He sees that if he wins, he can't enjoy life because he killed all of his family and friends and teachers. And if he loses, then he dies. So lose-lose situation. So he decides to do what? He drops his bow. He drops his bow because he's not going to fight. So he wants to go to the forest. And why is this significant? To the point that I've been talking about. He wants to just renounce everything, give it up. This is difficult, so let me not do it. Try, right? No, not try. This is ignorance. So Arjuna is a pure devotee of Krishna, and he's merely accepting this role for our benefit so we could understand how to act in life. And Krishna speaks to him pure wisdom of why he should indeed fight. And in this second chapter, Krishna, he mainly propounds like two major points. Is Arjuna finds it bewildering because Krishna is telling him to work and do the fighting, engage in the warfare, but at the same time detached and take up renunciation. And that leads to the next chapter, which just read. Arjuna said, my intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively what is most beneficial for me. He said, why do you urge me to engage in this ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work? So Arjuna is confused. He says, should I take up the cultivation of knowledge and intelligence, which leads to renunciation, or should I actually perform in the work? So Krishna elaborates further in the next chapter, which we'll be reading over the next few days. Why harmonize all these things into one activity of actually acting in the world, but being unattached to the results. We're acting as an offering to Krishna. So we take our activities and offer them to Krishna, and Krishna takes over the responsibility for the karma and all the chaos that ensues. And in this way, one can very easily transcend the modes of material nature. Krishna, he says that these modes of material nature are very difficult to overcome. What? Can easily cross over them. Is it Mayam Tarantite? So by surrendering unto Krishna, we can easily overcome these modes of material nature. Because later in the third chapter, which I think we just read it somewhere, gave like a prelude to it. Basically, one is, in text 5 of chapter 2, it says, all men, or chapter 3, all men are forced to act helplessly according to the impulses born in the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. And later on, Krishna says that the modes of material nature are acting alone, that we think we're the doer, but actually, modes of material nature are acting. So essentially, we're products of our environment. And we think that I'm free, I'm independent to make my own decisions. Lord Kapila Dev, he describes to his mother Devahuti that the process of reincarnation and how a jiva, a soul, dies, leaves the physical body, takes birth into an embryo, and then from the embryo grows up in the mother's womb. And this is a very precarious situation. And when you read it, it's pretty ghastly and vivid that you'll be in your mother's womb and she might eat something spicy, or there may be some worms in there, and they're like nipping at you, and the spicy things like burning you, and you have no say. You're just in there, just. But what I always found terrifying, more than that, is that after you're born, you take birth. You're raised as a kid. To like you're a teenager. You're completely raised in a way, in an environment, in a family, in a certain culture, reloaded the whole way to think. So that by the time you can actually think for yourself, which still isn't truly thinking for yourself, but relatively speaking, when your thinking is completely limited by the scope as what's been imposed upon you, the situation that you've been placed in. So then we think, I know who I am. I am this person. I come from this country, and I know clearly I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. This is what I have to do. This is my duty. When somebody else born in another country or another state, they think the same thing, but entirely in a different direction. All because there's no to material nature. So why is this happening? It's karma. We're stuck in this world and we're doing actions and we're interacting with the multi-material nature, which affects us in a certain way. And this leaves an impression upon us. And then we're further acting, and then we're further acting and further acting. And we're just constantly stuck in this web of action and reaction, action and reaction. So Krishna is trying to speak to Arjuna throughout the whole Bhagavad Gita, but especially in these first few chapters, is that there's a way to act, be free from the reaction. And the way to do this is just by following the directions of the Lord, which, I'm just reflecting that this isn't to just to, this religion, this way, because this actually isn't a dogmatic religion that, we're the Krishna religion, we're the Hindu religion. No, religion is one. Religion means to yoga, to link with God, to connect with God. So Jesus also said that, love God, you don't love the world. Because, anybody with intelligence could see that the world's temporary. So by learning to serve God naturally require transcendental knowledge, which leads to detachment. Because if you have transcendental knowledge, you could see there's a difference between spirit and matter. There's something beyond this life, and then naturally you're detached. And then this detachment can grow and grow. Where if you have a little bit of faith in the Bhagavad Gita and the scriptures, you see that the Vedas show how the world that we know it, material creation, is cyclical in nature. So right now we're in Kali Yuga, which is the degraded age. Kali Yuga, Satya Yuga, Dwapara Yuga. It goes around and round and round, and then ultimately the whole universe is annihilated. Created, annihilated. How can we get attached to something that's going on when everything's just being destroyed, created? Because we think it's all in all, then we become so attached. And I felt a little bad because I went shopping to the store right after I found out about the shooting which has happened. I went shopping to the store, and I went to check out, and the cashier was talking to me, and he was like so bummed out about what happened. And it seemed like he was just gonna talk to every single person for the rest of the day, like, oh yeah, you know what happened? Oh, it's crazy, oh this, that. But from my perspective, why freak out? If you have the knowledge that's being presented in the Bhagavad Gita, it's clear what's going on. And that there's no reason to be disturbed by the environment around us. Yeah, bad things may happen, but it's Kali Yuga, and this is to be expected, actually. And the Srimad Bhagavatam describes how things will get better before they get worse. Scriptures, it describes, more or less that when Lord Chaitanya came, a 10,000 year age golden period will arise, so that now we're in the middle of Kali Yuga, which lasts 432,000 years, and within that there'll be a 10,000 year period similar to Satya Yuga, spiritual realization, a renaissance. And I've always thought about this as sometimes things have to get better before they get worse. The state of the, yeah. I don't know the full details of what exactly it will look like, but what I've heard is that, yeah, resurgence of God consciousness, of spirituality will prosper. It'll be a period where majority of people are naturally inclined towards spirituality, towards God consciousness, as opposed to Kali Yuga, which is the age of ignorance, hypocrisy, argumenting, fighting over frivolous things. So it's said in the Shastra that this Kali Yuga is an age. It's like an ocean full of faults. Everywhere you look, you could find problem, 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 problem. Oh, there's too much, concrete. There's not enough trees. Oh, there's too much, pesticides and fertilizers in the foods. Oh, there's too much people here, too much people there, and not enough money. Everywhere you look, problem, problem, problem. It's not so hard. So the one blessing is within this age is that it's very easy to attain God realization just by chanting the Maha Mantra. So by doing that, it will change the atmosphere and it'll make it easier for others to do that as well. And in that way, it's like Satya Yuga, because when people are God conscious, then naturally they're not wasting their time with frivolous things, building factories, instead of farms, and they're actually sane, you could say. So, anyways, I could ramble on so many more topics. There's not enough time, but in short, just to summarize, yeah, Arjuna's getting ready to fight. He says, I don't want to fight. I want to go to the woods and become a renunciate. And Krishna says, you have to fight. Like, that's your nature. You're a warrior. So even if you try to leave, you're going to fight. So he persuades Arjuna through intelligence and wisdom that he should fight for the sake of Krishna and not be attached to the results. And there's a lot more details in between, but yeah. So does anybody have any questions or comments or thoughts on this before we call it a night? All right. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Shri Guru Nitai Ki Jai. Vancha Kapatru Vishnu Kripa Sindhi Vachapatitanam Pavane Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah.